All right, it's 7:30, everybody. Thanks for being on time. So welcome to the Python Basic Data Structures workshop. And I'd like to thank you for being here, especially when I think most of us, it's our dinner time. So thank you so much for being here. And we are going to do our best to give you a lot of value. We are Juliana, Melvin, and Thomas here from LCCL Coding Academy in Singapore. And just before we start, we are going to introduce ourselves and our academy. So our academy is LCCL, and you can make a guess of what that stands for. Our mission is educating all for the future, and that means we educate everybody, regardless of age and background. So we run classes for children at our academy, as well as teens and young adults, and they would learn things like Python, like what we are doing here actually. We also have activities with our partners, which are the schools around in Singapore, as well as preschools and organizations. So as usual, let's start with a poll. So let's roll the first poll. All right, great. We have about 85% who have voted, and I see that around about 60% attended our workshop before, and the rest didn't. So welcome back for those of you whom we have met on Monday, and also really good to meet you, those who just joined us today. We have a second poll to get to know you a bit better. So here's the second poll. And I really do hope that those of you who attended our first workshop would have selected, have some exposure to Python. Okay, great. Thanks for your answers. Keep them coming. Okay, as you are answering the poll, I really like to, so I'll just keep the poll running for a bit. And meanwhile, I would like to share the schedule for tonight. So 1.5 hours, and we'll cover strings, lists, tuple, set, and dictionary. But before we get to all this proper, I'd like to show those of you who may be new to using Google Collaboratory how you can set it up. So you have already been given the link to materials for the workshop. If you click on the link, you will see something like this. So that is, if you're not signed into Google, this is what you'll see. You'll see a PDF of the slides, and then you'll see the notebook file. Now, when you need to sign in order to see the notebook. So once you sign in, this is your view somewhat. And then from here, what you can do is double click on this, the IPY, the notebook file basically. And then you should see a button here. Okay, so click on that button. And then you see it loaded. Now, in order to run your own program and also edit this file, you have to save it to your drive. So click on File, Save a Copy in Drive, and then you'll be good to go. All right, so make sure you get that set up. Okay, thanks for all your answers in the poll. I think you can see the results over there. Okay, so good. Again, I'll do my best to cater to the majority attendees over here. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the workshop is on basic data structures, and actually the data structures are 4 of these. We are including string in this workshop because it is a very common data type, and so we'll have a look at what are some of the things that you can do with strings. So as you know, you can declare a string over here, whether with a single quotation mark or double quotation marks. And then you can access each character of a string by using the index. So let's say this is the whole string, right? The first character has an index of 0, second has an index of 1, and so on and so forth. So you can imagine if this is, let's say, 52 characters, the last index would be, if you said 51, then that's right? So it starts with 0, ends with 51, if the length is 52. Okay, so let me run this so you can see name 0 in this way would give you P. And those of you who are just got started with Google Colab, you see it will take a while for Google to release resources to you, and then you can see the result P. So you could change it to, let's say, 9. And that means it will get you the 10th character of the string, which in this case is capital D. Now, let's test with 8. All right. So since 9 gave us a capital D, 8 should be the character just before. And that would be, actually, it's already out. See, it's an empty space. So space is also a character. Okay, so that's accessing a character in a string. You could also slice the string, so you get a substring. And how it works is that you have this syntax and you have the first index followed by the second index, and you get a substring starting from the first index up to, but not including the second number here. So for example, we saw that at index number 9, that's D, right? And then if you count like 9, I is 10, A is 11, 12, 13, and 14 is actually this space here. But what you get is the substring from index 9 up until, but not including 14, which means it is 9 to 13. Other than that, you can get the length of a string by using the length function here. Just pass in the string. Now you will see later on that the length function is you're able to get the length of any sequence type, right? Including a string or a list, tuple, etc. You will see later. Okay, so the length of this string is actually 51. Okay, so concatenation means that we can add strings together, we can concatenate them together. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, let's get a substring, and let's put that substring in the variable child. Let's get a second substring, put that in the variable mother. Now you see something quite strange here, at least for those who are new to Python. You see that this number here is a negative. Okay, so in Python, remember the index, it starts from 0, right? In Python, you could also access it from the right, like from the rightmost character. And the index of the rightmost character, which is A over here, is -1. So if you start from the right to the left, then it's -1, -2, Y would be -3, L is -4, etc., etc. Okay, so when we do -9 up to, and then you see that there is nothing here, but that means you go from the character at -9 up until the very end of the string. Okay, so let's do this. Let's just print child, and I'll also print mother. All right, so you see that child is Diana, as we saw in our earlier example, right? Way earlier here. And then mother is Hippolyta. Let's see why it's Hippolyta. Okay, so remember earlier we said, okay, if you go from right to left, then the index would be starting from -1. So if you count -1 and so on and so on, you get to -9 here. And this bit of slicing means like from -9 up to the very end of the string. So mother is Hippolyta. So then you can do some concatenation, string concatenation in this way. This was covered in the first workshop, right? Just put a plus and then you concatenate the strings. That's why the result is this. Okay, the next part is about string membership. So you can check whether a substring, this one, whether this substring is in this string. So let's see the result of the first one. Okay, I'm commenting out this. So is hippo in name? Yes, it is there because here, hippo. But remember that Python is case sensitive. So if I run the second statement, our second expression here, then we have false because our h here is a small h. All right, now there are a lot more that you can work with the string. And those of you who are not new to code, may have some experience in object-oriented languages. The string has other methods that you can use. So you can access the documentation over here. Of course, you can also access via the documentation online. But to have a quick one, you can use the function help, right, and string, and then you'll see it. Okay, so here are some of the methods. For example, rfind, right? Replace, and you can have a look at your own time. All right, so that would be strings. Let me just check if there's any questions. Okay, great. So let's move on to list. Now, a list is so if you remember, like we thought of variables, at least in the first workshop, we thought of variables as a space, like one box to keep your piece of data. Okay, think of list as a contiguous boxes, right? Where you put your data. So in order to create a list, an empty list, you will use this square bracket, a pair of square brackets. So here is an alternative of creating the empty list, right? List and then brackets this way. The third line here is how you would create a list which is already populated with some items. So as you can see, this list, whole list has 4 items. And in Python, you can have any kind of data type value in the list. So you see this fruits list actually now as a combination of strings, your numeric data types, and a Boolean. It's also possible to have list in a list. So this 3 cards is a list, as you can see, right? But each item of the list is actually a list itself. So this is a 2-dimensional list. Okay, let's see how you can access items in a list. So I'll comment this part out. I'll run this. Invalid syntax. Let me see here. Oops, invalid syntax here. Okay. Okay, so I run this. Now I'm gonna run this part, and we will see what fruit 0 is. Now, similarly to the strings earlier, where 0 is the index of the first character, for the list, the index of the first item, so this whole item has an index of 0. So fruit 0 would give us like banana. And similarly, also with the with string, it goes like from 0 and then 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth if the list is longer. Likewise, you can index from the right. So from the right, this would be grapes would be at the index of -1, then peach -2, and so on and so on. So let's see the results we have here. Right? If you run it, okay, I see grapes because that's the last line here, and then notebook only gives me this. Okay, but if you print it out, you'll see that it'll be banana and then peach because 0, 1, 2. Okay, now let's see how you can access when you have a list in a 2-dimensional list here, right? How can you access, for example, the card over here? Okay, so if you want to access, let's say, this JD, then what you need to do is to first access the you get the index of the list over here. Okay, so that would be 3 cards. Three cards, 0. Okay, let me just run it. So you see it. So you see 3 cards 0 gives you this whole list because that's the first item of the outer list, right? The 3 cards list. So now if you want to get the item in the middle, then just put on the index of the second item, which is 1. So JD, there you go. So you make a guess, especially those of you who are new, how do you get QH here? So be 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's 3. And then we have to change this to within this this small list, 0, 1, 2. There you go. All right, great. Okay, changing list item. So the earlier list is banana, custard, apple, peach, grapes. If you want to change, let's say, the first item from banana to apple, all you need to do is to reassign it, right? So fruits 0, and then just assign the new item to it. So in this case, assign apple to it. So now let's see if I run this. There you go. Here it's no longer banana, it's now apple. Okay, similarly, you can change, you can also replace the list item in a 2-dimensional list. So let's replace the 3 cards. Let's say we want to replace this TS to something else. 3 cards here. 3 cards, and you make a guess what which 2 indexes you need. So it goes like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4. And then we want to change TS to 0, 1 here. 1. And let's change it to, let's put XX so we can see. Okay, so we've changed it. Let's inspect. And there you go, you see, this is now XX. Okay, so similarly, length, you can use it on a list. It'll give you the number of items in that list. So you see fruits, there are 4 items, 1, 2, 3, 4. So running length on fruits will give you 4. You could also run it on a 2-dimensional list, no difference. So, okay, this is 3 cards actually. 3 cards. Okay, so let's see what we get when we run this. Just comment this out. Length of 3 cards should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because it has 5 items in it. And then if we inspect the length of the first item in 3 cards, it should give us. And if you say 3 to yourself, then it's right, you see. Okay, similarly, you have the concept of slicing on the list. It's the same as the string. Okay, so for clarity's sake, I will explain it here. So when you write it this way, 1:3, you have 2 numbers, then you will get a substring where starting from index 1 up to but not including 3. So that's just index 1 and 2 in this case, which is, as you can see, it's custard, apple, and peach. Now you can also, so I didn't say just now, but if you want to get a sublist from the start, from the beginning up to a certain item, you can do this. So you can leave the first space here empty, and then it'll get you from the start, from the beginning up to but not including this second number. Okay, similarly, like that, from this index until the end of the list when you leave this empty. Okay. All right, you can concatenate 2 lists together. So here you have 2 lists, concatenate them by add using plus. And then what you get is a new list. Right, there's a first list plus second list, one full new list. You can check for membership as well. And membership, you're checking for membership of an item. So peach is in the earlier list fruits, but you remember there was no durian. So if I hover over, there's no durian here, so you get false. You can iterate through a list, just like you can also iterate through a string. And I'll just run this so you see the results. So here, fruits is a list, and what you're doing is you're just writing a for loop to say for a variable here in fruits. And then for each iteration of the loop, this variable will be populated with the item in the list in sequence. Okay, so remember it was apple, custard apple, etc., and then that's what you get here. Okay. All right, there is a useful function called enumerate. And this is actually a built-in function, but because it's so useful, I'll cover it here. Enumerate, if I'll just add a, okay. Let's see the results that you get from calling enumerate on this sequence, which happens to be a list. So you get an enumerate object. No, but what you can do is you can cast it to a list and see the result. Okay, so when you see this result, you can think of it, okay, here there's a pair of the index and the item. So custard apple was the second item, and then you have the index 1, and so on and so forth. So because when you now iterate through the result of this, you can think of it as you're iterating through this. And now for each item of this list, this whole thing is a list. And then it has 4 items, right? But each item is actually a tuple. So you can think of it as a pair, as in PAIR pair. So now you have 2 variables to receive those 2 different values. So the first one is the index, second one is the item in that list. If I print this, and there you go. Okay, all these other things are string formatting. I think for those who maybe missed the workshop or may not know what this is about, this is simply a way for you to format the string. Lets me insert I here as a value, and then I could just have this operation done, and then it concatenates the. It concatenates the string very nicely for me here, with many very different variables. All right, so let's start our hands-on. Let's see, hands-on number 1. Okay, take about 3 minutes. And the reason we have hands-on is that I think because most of you are not new to coding, I think we can all appreciate that you learn best when you actually do it, right? So, or rather that this workshop is full of hands-on than you listening to someone talk. Okay, let's discuss. Okay, this is a pretty classic like problem or practice. So to check whether a palindrome, and again, in the interest of time, I'm going to copy paste here. And so I have my first code to get input. And in fact, this is up to you, right? Whether you want to get input or you just want to hard code it here, or you just want to type Anna. Okay. But if I get an input, then I want to make sure that it's they're all either converted to lowercase or uppercase, so that I could compare correctly later on. Okay, there are definitely more than one way to do this, and so here is one possible way. But actually, before talking about that way, right? Let's discuss a bit how would you approach it. So, the idea in this case is to have a look at the first, like when we first start, we have a look at the first character and the last character, and we want to see, hey, are they the same? Right? And if they are the same, then we will move on to the next. And if they're the same, we'll move on to the next. But at any point where they are different, then immediately we can already say that it is not a palindrome. So that is the idea over here with this algorithm. And also, as we check, we notice that, okay, actually, since we are checking like character at the front and then at the back, we realize that actually we don't have to check through the whole string, right? We could actually check through up until half. So, which is why we are here, the loop iterates up until half of the string, half of the word. Okay, so what I have over here is a variable like the X, like a flag. So firstly, I just assume that it is a palindrome. So then the idea is I want to iterate through the string, and if I see it's not a palindrome, then I'm gonna set this variable to false. Okay, so this is what's happening over here. Then what over here, remember that I goes from, at least in this case for I, in range, right? And you remember that range returns us these numbers. And so for each iteration of the loop, I goes from 0 up until, but not including, whatever result this is. So I starts from 0, and then with a little bit of math, I'm just comparing it to the index of the very last character. So when I is 0, then this is -1. And then when I is 1, this whole thing is -2, and so on and so forth. Right. So that's how I'm comparing two characters from leftmost to right, from leftmost and the leftmost and rightmost character, and then we move from there to the middle. So whenever I see that they are not the same, not equals, then I set this variable to false, and then I just break out of the loop. So the next thing I do is simply have a conditional here if, depending on whether palindrome is true or false. So if this is true, then this will be printed. But if this is false, then it goes to the else part and then it prints this. Okay, so there was a question about what this means, this F here. So this is a short way for Python to do string formatting, right? So I have a little F here. You can think of it as indicating that now we want a formatted string in Python. And what you can do with the formatted string is that you can put this curly brackets here, and then you can have your value here. That value in this case is a variable, and then that variable is then concatenated to the rest of the string. So let me run an example. So actually there's a word, ibophobia. And that is a palindrome, right? But if it's, let's say, Annie, then it's not a palindrome. Okay, so this double slash is an integer division. So for example, if the length of the word is 7, and then when I divide by 2, I'm not going to get 3.5. I will get 3 instead. Okay, now I'm pretty sure if you have your own solution, that has a uses a while loop, that's valid too. There's always more than one solution to coding. Okay, hands-on number 2. And for those of you who may be new to our hands-on, it is time for you to do your hands-on. All right, let's discuss this. So before delving into the code, again, let's talk a little bit about just a high-level strategy. So here it's pretty clear you want to read input until a blank line is entered, okay? And then we want to display average of all values. Okay, so then here we start to know that, we need firstly the sum of all values, but not only that, we need each of the value that has been entered, because later on we need to compare and see whether they are above average or below average. So, so if you think about it, the data structure that we've just learned tonight is the list, and the list would be quite a perfect structure to store all the numbers for this particular problem. So what I do is I want to have 3 lists. And the first list is to store all the numbers, and second and third for those below and above average. So the first thing that I'll do is that I would get the input, right? And I decide, and you don't have to, but I decide to have a while true here so that this whole loop is actually an infinite loop if I don't break it. So it would be a good idea to break it in this way. So if input is blank, right, then we break out of the loop. But let's say we get the input and then we say, oh, it's not blank. And here we're going to make an assumption. We will assume that either the input is blank or it's a number. So we can always cast it to an integer. And we'll just assume that they're integers. Okay, so once I've cast it to an integer, then I will append it to this list of numbers. Okay, so notice that we have used this dot append, which is the method, which is a method of the list for you to add to the end of the list. Okay, so numbers dot append is gonna, if I have enter 10 numbers here, then I'm gonna get first number in the first position, and then second number in the second position, etc., etc. Okay, actually, let's test this part. So I'm going to, at the end, just inspect numbers. Okay, so let's say 5, 6, 3, 4, 9, and then empty. So there you go, 5, 6, 3, 4, 9, and then that's the only things in the list. So we can calculate average when we have at least one number, right? So I will just put this condition in to be safe. And so I'll first get the average. Okay. And in order to get the average, and there are several ways to do this, right? One is you can use the sum function, sum inbuilt function, built-in function, and you put the list as the argument. It'll give you the sum of everything in the list, and then you divide it by the length of that list, and you get the average. That's one way. Some of you may have another variable where you total up, right? That's also another way. Okay, then the second part is just to sift through the numbers list and get above average and below average numbers. Okay, so this is it. So for each numbers, then I just compare whether if it's less than average, then I will append it to the below average list, and then if it's above average, I'll append it to above average list. And okay, so at the very end, print out the output. Actually, print out over here. Okay. So I've chosen to just print out the entire list. Okay, since there was another question about this, I will explain this thing about formatted string again. But if you want to see it a bit, if you don't get it this time and you want to hear about it again, what you can do is you can wait until the end of this workshop, and we'll tell you how you can obtain video of the last workshop session, so you can have a look at it again. So you could, in order to print out, right, you could print it this way. You could say print, and this print like comma this, so you're passing 2 arguments to the print function, and then behind the scenes print function like concatenate for you, then you print out. Or rather, behind the scenes, the function just prints out one full string for you. But you can also like use this string formatted, or you use a formatted string, and it goes this way. Let me see what's the original average. Okay, so average, and we want the average number here, right? So this is like a placeholder. You can think of it as a placeholder, this pair of curly brackets. And then I'll put in my variable average. And then all it does is that it just puts in the value and then you get that string. Okay, so let's test this again. Okay, so average in this case is 8. And then you have your below average values and above average values. So notice this is the result of your formatted string. All right. So you could do it this way. And since we're here, let me just share something. Python has, another way is you could use a function in one of the libraries or in one of the modules, all right? And there is a function called mean, but that mean function is in the statistics module, so you have to import it. Okay, so if you want to, you could do this, average mean of numbers. Okay, you can inspect it. Should be the same. 8.2, so it's 8, as we would expect. All right. Okay, so moving on to hands-on tree now, but before we go there, just notice something. We learned the string, which is a data type, and then we have introduced a list. Now, list is now a data structure that you notice is a contiguous like item right next to each other. And later on, you will see that there are different data structures which lets you sort of store data in a certain way. And depending on what you want to do with the data, you pick a data structure that's suitable for it, right? So since it's just list and string so far, hands-on tree is about those. All right, let's discuss it. Basically, the result of this is going to be a list of all these suits, right? All these cards. So let's very quickly go through it. Okay, so you want to return a certain list. All right, now I'll share the code and then I'll describe it. Okay, so first I want to have a list, and that list goes like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth, 9, and then 10, right? T for 10, J, Q, K, Ace. Now I could put it as a like big string like that, right? Not a big list like this. I could I just choose to do this just so that you can see a variation here. So I use range because I know that range will get me 2 up to but not including 10, right, in this case. And then I change it to a list and I simply concatenate the list. Then I have another list called suits. And these are spades, hearts, etc., etc. Then I have an empty list for the deck of cards that eventually I'm going to return. So just 2 loops here to make this work. So for each suit in the suits, right, then I'll say, so for each suit in the suit, so you see that the first item of this suits list is S for spades. So you can expect that you're working with spades. And then within that outer loop, you have an inner loop that goes through the values list, right, which is this. So you can see for S, and then you go through each item in this values list. So you get 2S, 3S, so on and so forth until AS, right? Once you get done with AS, this loop is done. This loop is done, then you move back to the outer loop, and then move on to the next item in that list, which is hearts, and then so on and so forth. So the result of this, okay, there's invalid syntax here because I forgot to close it. Forgot to have this open bracket. Okay, then let me just create that. Okay. Right, so here's the list. Now, you may want to, especially those of you who are new, you may want to have a second look slowly at your own time. You have the materials anyway. Okay, but I will move on now. Actually, let's take a poll first and together with a short break. Okay. Let's roll the third poll. Again, I will share the solution here to that same folder where you obtain the materials. But please don't go into a mindset of thinking that these are model answers, right? There are no such thing as model answers. Just depends on the context that you're using the code for. And then within this context, you want to see whether, sometimes you want to consider efficiency, but no way is there model answers. Okay, thanks for that. So if you need a quick break, I hope you took it. I'm just going to move on, so to make sure that we have enough time to cover all this. Okay, so let's move on to the 3 next data types, which is tuple, set, and dictionary. So tuple, you can think of it as a list, but the difference between it and the list is that it's immutable. So once you create it, you can't change it anymore. So we remember when you created the list, you could say, oh, I want to change the second item to something else. Tuple, you can't do that because it's immutable. But you can still access it the same way as a list, right? So you still use a square bracket to access. But then when you create it, you use the round bracket, right? So these 2 lines create empty list, and this creates a pre-populated, empty tuple. Then here creates a pre-populated tuple in this way. Right? And similarly, you could have different data types as items in the tuple. You can concatenate tuples. And if you have a tuple with 1 item, then you need this like comma, right? Just to differentiate between so if you see here 1, that's number 1. But if you put this, then this is tuple with item 1 in it. Okay, similarly, and this is not new, you've seen it before, you can check for membership. You can check whether this tuple contains 10. Okay, let's run this and so you can see results. So here scores is just 1, 2, 3, 1, 1. What's the second one? It's 3. Not second one, the index 2, so 0, 1, 2. So index 2, that item is 3. Then you start to add a few scores. So let's see the results of this scores. Okay, so you check whether 10 is in scores, and let's comment this out so we can see some results. 10 in scores is false because you don't have 10 in here. Okay. You could also iterate through the tuple, just like you've done with list and string. So this is this should be familiar. And then you could use the length function to find out the length of the tuple. Okay. Okay. Now set. So the set is a sequence where you cannot have any duplicate items. Okay. So that's the defining property of a set, and you could create an empty set like that, right? Or you could create an empty set like that. So here is here are two sets. One is my favorite food, and then you have your favorite food. And notice that we use the curly brackets. Okay. So suppose if, let's say your favorite food, let's have again tom yum, because maybe you love tom yum twice as much. Okay, so let me run this your favorite food. And you see that even though you have two tom yum items inside, the resulting set is just one because you can't have duplicate items. Okay. Right. You can add things to the set by using the add method. You can discard it by doing this. So let's test this out. Fruits. Fruits.add. Yeah, because fruits is empty, right? So so now after I delete it, then fruits is then back to an empty set. Okay, then we can check for membership. So is chicken rice in your favorite food? It'll be yes, because you have it. You can also iterate through a set. So these are not new concepts, right? So I think it's understandable. Okay, now you have a concept of set intersection. So intersection takes, when you have one set intersect another set, then you have the resulting set are items that belong to both sets. So in this case, it should be nasi padang and chicken rice, right? Because you see, let's run it over here so you see. Okay. So the common item in my favorite food and your favorite food are these two, chicken rice and nasi padang. Okay, a union of the set would be everything. Everything here and everything here. So union of all items in the set. So let's see. Okay, and you see that the duplicates are not there anymore. Okay, set difference. Okay, there's some difference now. Beef noodles. Okay. So set difference just now was my favorite food, but then you take a difference minus your favorite food. So you start here, and then what we do is we take away from this set items that are in the second set. So chicken rice is in, so we take this away. And then nasi padang is in, so we take nasi padang away, and that leaves us laksa and beef noodles. Okay, and then you see length again. All right. Dictionary. Dictionary is a data structure that you can think of as a collection of key value pairs. And you create a dictionary, empty dictionary in two ways. One is using this or this. You can also create a dictionary that's already pre-populated. So you have, and so notice here, one pair is separated by a comma, right? So here you have in total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pairs. And within a pair, you see there's a key, which is on the left-hand side here of the colon, and then colon, and then followed by the value. So key and then value. Okay. Here's another example of a dictionary. Here you have the A as the key, right? 31, and then in this second pair you actually have 24 as the key, and then in this third pair you have this float 1.23 as a key. You can use any immutable type as a key. Okay. In this case, the value is actually a list, if you notice. Okay, so how can you access a particular value in the dictionary? Here is how you access it. The name of the dictionary, right? In this case, this example is capitals. And then the key is for example, if you set key to Malaysia, then you'll get the value here. Whereas for D, if you choose to see what is the value of D, A, where key is A, then you'll see 31, so on and so forth. Okay, you can update the dictionary. So for example, you can add or you can update. So let's say here we are missing Vietnam, right? Hi to our Vietnam friends if you're here. So to add, you just like capitals, and then you have this new key, right? And then assign it to a value. Then if we inspect the dictionary now, here you go. You can also update, right? Let's say this is not quite right, but this is Ho Chi Minh City. Okay, then you update it to Ho Chi Minh City. Okay, keep it back to Hanoi. All right, deleting, just use the pop method, right? So this pop and then followed by the key. You can also check for membership. So you go like is Thailand in capitals, and actually you may want to. So Thailand in capitals is true, but if you print capitals, right? You will see this, and this is true because you could check whether the key is here. But if you check for Bangkok, and you actually get false. And Bangkok is a value. Okay, so just note that if you want to check this, this is just remember the difference. Okay, now so what if you want to check whether this Bangkok, right? Whether this pairs in. In order to do that, you have to use the items method. No attribute items. Okay, then this is now true. Okay. So let's see what items give us. Okay, so you can see you can think of it as a sequence, right? A sequence of a pair like that, pairs. So if you put it in a loop like that, and this is quite similar to just now the enumerate. I mean, you can think of it as somewhat like this. So here now you have a list of pairs, and so you have these two values to accept those pairs, those two values in the pair, and then for each iteration, this will be the key, which is the key in the dictionary, and then you have the corresponding value in this case, which is the capital of that country. Okay, then you also have length, and you can use length as well on the dictionary. All right, so we covered actually pretty simple concepts, so just 3 of them. But from now on, there are 4 hands-on. We may be able to finish them. Hopefully we can. But don't think of this as necessarily having to use tuple, set, and dictionary. Okay, you have to read and then decide for yourself what might be a suitable data structure for this. Okay, now before you start the hands-on, here are some useful methods to use. So the upper and lower you've seen before. So if you have a string, let's say name John, right? You could upper, and this will return you the uppercase copy of that string. There's also something called join. Okay, I won't really explain this. I'll show you the example in the hands-on instead. But you could use join, but you could also write alternative code without using join that would achieve the same thing. That's fine. So remember, there's also enumerate, and I'll just show you what this can do here with the split method. So earlier we had fruits, I think. Let's see, fruits. Oh, it's a set. Okay, fruit, was it? Oh, actually, this is not list. This is actually a string. So let's get John Doe. And split. Okay, so if you want a quick list with each of this so-called words in the string, right, split up into a list, you can use split on the string. Okay, all right, let's see hands-on 4. Take about like 3 minutes for this. All right, let's quickly discuss this hands-on for because it is quite a short code. So you want unique case-sensitive characters in a string, and so let's say if you have a string apple, so unique characters would be just A, P, L, and E. And the nice thing about well, you can do this. Okay. I wanted to say nice thing about Python, but I decided not to profess my love for Python too much. Okay, so set S, and then you get a set of all the characters. So, but that's not what you want, right? You want actually to print the number of unique case-sensitive characters. So, so the number, you get it from the length of that set. So there you go. Okay, okay, hands-on 5. Okay, let's discuss this. And you can see here that in this particular example, we actually enter a sentence. Okay, but let's see how we can approach this. So even though here, eventually we wanted to handle a sentence, that doesn't mean that we can, we can always start small, right? I can say, okay, this problem is maybe for the whole sentence, but I will start by translating one word. So let's say I create a function, and the purpose of this function is to translate a word. Okay, so let's see how many cases there are. There are 3. Ends with a vowel, or actually 2 cases, and then we'll treat y as a vowel. So let's do the first case. Well, starts with a vowel. So it starts with a vowel. And let me do this. Okay. Okay, so if it starts with a vowel, then we'll simply return word and then append ay at the end. So the second case is starts with a consonant sound, right? So else. And what we'll do is, so the idea here is some possible words are of course sock, right? But you can also have school, and you can also have there. So if this is the case, then th has got to be moved back, and then in this case, sch has got to be moved back. And then what if not that there's any such word, but let's say right? Then in this case, this is also moved back and so-called moved back. But then you should get something. You should get at least, you should get this, right? It shouldn't be some error or anything, or none. Okay, so the idea is now, at least my thought is to say, okay, I want to iterate through the whole string. And as soon as I see the first vowel, then I'm going to get, so for example here, I iterate until I get to the first vowel. I'm going to get this whole so-called consonant group before it, and then bring it to the back. So I'm going to iterate for I and character in word. So if character is a vowel, and y, because it says to include y as a vowel. So if it is, then we know that if this happens, right, the first time, then I would already be the index of the first vowel, which you can see an example here, right? In the case of school, I will be 3. So that means we can get the consonant group, which is word up until I, okay? And then append this part to word I, right? So meaning that in this case, OOL would be this, and then SCH would be this, and then at the end we want AY. Then we can immediately return this. Okay. And that's it. Let's test actually. Oh, no more return. So let's test. Translate. Okay. Let's see. Vowels is not defined. Vowels of. Okay. So because this is a copy paste error, so let me just here vowels. Right. Let's test with egg. And oh, nothing. So actually this we got to deal with it. Okay, so in this case, we have traversed until the very end, and we never found a character that is in vowels, right? So at the end, Okay, so since this requires us to apply it to a sentence, so you imagine this, you have a sentence. Right, and then and you could do this. You could use the split as good forward, and then you translate each word. Okay, and then you can already proceed to print. And for those of you who were here before and saw me discuss this, you could end that way. It would work too. Okay, and then there are other ways. There are other ways where you can use join, so on and so forth. Okay. All right. Since we have 2 more hands-on, actually, let's quickly go to these 2 hands-on 6. Let's discuss hands-on 6. There's already a big giveaway over here with how you can see the output. So I hope you chose the dictionary with letters as the keys. And then here is a big giveaway where it's the value, it would be a set. So for example, if you see here, this string has more than 1 me. But if you look into M, there's only 1 me in there. That's all you need. So let's see how we do this. So report. Okay. Okay. So I start with the dictionary, and then what I do with the string s here, right, is, for example, this is an example argument you put in. So what I do with that is that I want to convert all to lowercase, and then I split, which means that the resulting s is actually a list of the words. So then I iterate through the list. Okay, and then I start to do something like this. I get the first letter of the word. Actually, let me not do this first. Let me convince you. Print S. So S is list. Okay, you see this here because this is the result of this, the return value. Okay, so for each word in S, I get the starting, like the first character, right? Word 0, that's the first character. And then I change that to uppercase. Okay. So actually there's a better way. So I could have done, let's say, like title instead. But it's okay. Okay, so then you could say if key in D. So if key in D, you basically want to add it to the set. All right, so then D key, I say is D key, which is already a set, and you want to union it with word. But when you want to union, the other part needs to be a set too. So this is a set containing the word. Okay, but let's say if that key is not in the dictionary, then you have to create a new set with a word in it. Okay, so that's it. Then you return D. Okay. So if you are experienced in Python, you know that there is there's an alternative to this. So the alternative is you do something like you use the get method. Okay, and you could, as you learned in the last workshop, you could always do a help on the get method. Get. Then you see, okay, it returns the value for key. If it is in the dictionary, else you'll return the default. Okay, so so you could write it alternatively this way. I'll copy paste it here, and then since you get access to the video anyway, you can slowly take a look and understand it. Okay. All right. I'm gonna move on to, because let me see. Hands-on 7. Maybe just really quickly read through it because I really want to honor your time here. So basically you have a list of actions, and then you have this string. Okay, so you can think of this this underscore as the road, and then this as the hurdle. So when you see road, hurdle, road, hurdle, road, and then you run, jump, run, jump, run, jump, run, and then nothing happens to the hurdles, right? But if you see these hurdles this way, and then you do run, jump, and then you run for the rest, then this hurdle will be explanted because you run over the hurdle. So if it is the road, and then you jump on the road, and then you just imagine that you have just like maybe you hurt your knees, right? So you have this X. Okay. So again, hopefully you'll take a look at the video and slowly understand it, especially those of you who are new. So I will just very quickly explain this. So remembering that the dictionary can take any immutable type as the key. So I have this action and the state, and then the resulting state. So if I run and then there's a road and then the resulting state is still this. If I run and then the state is a hurdle, then the resulting state is this like stunted hurdle, and so on and so forth. And then what I do is just I just say I want to in the end have a result as the list. But what I'll do is that at the end of it as a list, and I'm going to join. So this is where the join comes in. I mean, you could write it in a different way too, but I use join because it's a very nice method here on the string. So quickly show you what join does here. So let's say you have a list like this. So this is the list, okay, and join, and over here it's a string method, so I have a string over here. Okay, so if I have, let's say, star join, then you see that items in the list is they're all being joined into one big string, and this is the thing that is right in between, right? So this is because I specified it here. So because here I have like empty string, so you'll join everything in the list so that it will result in something like that. That's what I expect. And then so next thing for I action in actions, I think here it's meant to be actions here. Okay, so this is a list of actions. So for and enumerate over it, then I get this. Then I'll just simply append the result like that. Okay. So I'll append, and what do I append? And you see that this is D, so this is the dictionary, and the key is basically this tuple here, right? The action together, and then followed by the state. So the action and the state. Okay, then I'll immediately get this result. I just append it to the list and then join it to become a string. Okay, so we are right on time here. Again, hopefully you can have a look at the video and then get to see a bit like through your own time and take your own time to understand. So here's a quick recap. Okay, we covered 4 data structures and 1 data type, which is the string. Okay, so in order to get the video of this workshop, today's workshop and also Monday's workshop, you would go to this link and then enter your details. For those of you who were here for the Monday workshop and you entered your details already, you don't have to enter it again. You just need to go to the, you just need to access the resource page that was given to you. Today's video will be added within the next 24 hours. And also remember to give your feedback to Shopee. So on the right side, please go follow this link here and give us your feedback. Okay, so I will just take an additional couple of minutes here in case you have any Q&A. If not, thank you for being here. Thank you for staying throughout the evening and throughout our workshop. We have one more workshop coming up about the arrays and stack, which will be led by Melvin and me. So if you're attending it, we'll see you. And then if not, wish you all the best. And yes, as usual, the code will be added to the drive